Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. I took last week off. Honestly, the thought of going back to work some days feels very okay, and then other days it feels a little bit overwhelming, and that was definitely happening last Tuesday. Truthfully, I've not been the best at pre-recording the podcast, and luckily I had an outline already written out from the part 1 of this kind of 2-part series on fat loss. Again, listen at your own comfortability. I gave that disclaimer last episode, is that if talking about this triggers you or anything, please pause the episode. Don't listen to it. No offense taken at all. I've definitely gone through seasons where this conversation would have been really uncomfortable for me, and now I really feel like I have a different approach, and honestly just a much healthier approach in how I view my body and how I view fat loss and weight loss and just the relationship I have with food. But I know that's not the case for everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I went to Junk Stock this weekend and actually met a listener in the wild. It was the first time that's ever happened that I met somebody who I don't know that listens to the podcast. And it was honestly just so encouraging to keep recording because I really just record for fun. I sit on here and chat to myself, but it feels like I'm talking to someone every week or almost every week, and it just means a lot when I know that there's actually people on the other end listening to each episode. So that was so much fun. It was so touching, and I was telling my friend Delaney, I'm like, I really wish my brain did not feel like it was functioning at half capacity, because even just like having a conversation, I feel like sometimes is really difficult because my mind, I don't know, I'm getting adequate sleep, truthfully. Like, I'm really getting enough sleep. I feel like there's just always a lot of things I'm thinking about. My memory is much worse than it used to be. And all of that, I think they call mom brain. I would say, honestly, that is very valid. There's so many things that I'm sure you could say. If you ate more fat, that's really good for brain support. Got more sleep. Yeah, I understand that. But at some point, like, you really just have a lot of things that you're thinking about all day long, and you can't remember everything. So, yeah, that was just a highlight, honestly, of the last week. Going to Junk Stock in general was a highlight of my week. It was something that I was a little hesitant to go, because I live about 2 hours away from where Junk Stock is. Junk Stock is like I don't know what you would call it. There's a lot of like vendors there, people that make their own things, set up booths there. There's food, and it's kind of a big thing if you're from Nebraska, and I live a couple hours away from where it's held. And I take Oliver with me because I'm doing some bottles with him, but mostly just breastfeeding. And so he comes with me wherever I go. And I really timed out his feedings right. When we walked around, he basically slept the whole time. And then right when I was getting ready to leave, he got a little bit more fussy. And it just felt really good to have an outing that went really well. It was the first time I had really driven that far away and been that far away without Nathan, to be there as kind of that support and just help with him. So yeah, overall it just felt really good to be able to do that on my own and kind of have that independence. In other news, really not too much else is going on. I'm at home a lot, which is great. I love it. We get outside a lot, sit outside a lot, go for a lot of walks, and that is kind of a bulk of what our days look like right now. We get up around, 7:30, have breakfast, go for a walk, get some things done for the day, go back outside after lunch. We've also been renovating, kind of redoing the entryway in the back of our house, and that is very slowly come together. If you follow me over on Instagram, I had posted some updates of like what we're planning to do with that. And I was thinking, in a weekend we would get it done. And that was about 2 weeks ago, and it's still not complete. And I just really feel like that's how all house projects go, is like you think, okay, I'm going to have this all done in a couple weekend, or like in a weekend, it won't take too long. And then my husband, he put some paneling up on the wall, because long story short, in the back of our house, they had added on an enclosed porch. I guess there was an enclosed porch, I believe, and then they made it a part of the house. And so that's like an extension of the kitchen. Anyway, so we took off kind of the paneling that was on one wall, and it was really just exposing the old siding that was on the wall and then the brick. And we thought we would keep it. I really thought I could do something with it, make it look like, I don't know, kind of antique-esque. And it was just so ugly. I could not stand to look at it. And one day I was standing there and I told Nathan, I'm like, I just really feel like I kind of hate that wall. And he's like, I was kind of waiting for you to say that because I do too. Let's cover it up. And so that's what we did. So we did car siding on that wall, and it's just kind of like a wood paneling. And so we put that up, and the first time we went, we got boards that were too short. So then he went and returned those, and then he got the right size boards, and then he was one board short, so he had to go and get another board. It was just a whole process, but now it's up and it's painted. It looks really, really nice. We just need to do some crown molding on the top, do the trim on the bottom, and then put in a railing. And then I need to figure out how to decorate it, get some hooks, all the things. It just honestly feels like it'll probably never get done, which isn't true. I feel like, though, doing things like that to just revamp the space is very, I don't know, it just makes me feel really, really good. I kind of did that in the kitchen too. We had our coffee bar that was out in our dining room, and I moved it into the kitchen, and it just looks so much better. And this all really stemmed from me hyperfixating on all the little things that were not complete in our house. And it really one day was just so triggering for me. It made me so upset. Like in our kitchen, we redid our kitchen about 2 winters ago, and we still don't have a backsplash. And I'm like so ticked off that we don't have a backsplash. And then when we put in our kitchen, we made a little nook above the stove for the microwave. Well, we don't really use the microwave that often, so we decided to put it in our pantry. So now we have a hole for where the microwave was supposed to go, and now it's not there. Again, it's just like all those little things I feel like I just hyper fixated on for an entire day, and it just ticked me off. And I don't really know why. I don't know what started that. I think sometimes it just feels very overwhelming when you're already a little overwhelmed with things, and then you see your space is maybe cluttered or it's not all complete and you want it to be, but you don't have the ability for it to be. Like, I don't know how to put a backsplash. I've been looking for the last year for something to put in the nook where the microwave is supposed to go to make it look kind of like that's not a mistake. And again, I just can't find anything that I like or that would fit the space. And so it was just one of those days. And I really do believe that what your space looks like is kind of a reflection of what your brain feels like. So when you've got clutter and stuff all over and you feel disorganized, I feel like that's a direct reflection of where my brain's at. And so I think that's maybe why when my space is cluttered, I just feel angry and upset, and it just drives me crazy. So those are just kind of some house updates. Again, because I'm mostly home, we were able to focus on that. My husband also has a lot of time off of work. He won't go back until beginning of June. And it's just really nice to have him around because he can watch Oliver, hold Oliver if he's fussy or if I'm making meals. And I'm just really grateful that we can kind of do this postpartum period together, or at least like the first couple months postpartum together. It's been really, really nice to have him here. I'm trying to think if there's any other updates. No, other than today, I'm going to get all of the plants for my garden. I'm really, really excited to get that started. I've been seeing on social media that people are getting their gardens ready, and the last 2 years, this will be my 3rd year with a garden. The last 2 years, I've started everything from seed about in February and grew it until I planted it in the ground in May. Well, last year I planted everything outside, and with the spray that they use on the fields around us, it can drift, I think, up to 2 miles, and they're typically done spraying around mid-June, but I didn't have anything covered, and so we went on vacation. We came back and everything was just fried to a crisp and dead, and that was just really, really defeating because I had grown everything literally since February from seed, took such tender love and care of it, and then it just died. So this year I'm like, I'm not starting anything from seed. Also, I had a baby in this like in between time frame, and it just was not in the cards. So I'm going to a greenhouse that's actually like just about a couple miles from us. This lady has plants, and so I'm just gonna support somebody else, buy her plants, and get everything in the ground, which I'm really, really excited about. Probably will do peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, spinach, lettuce, I'm not doing potatoes or onions because those are way too cheap to buy at the store. I did some kale last year. That was really good. And spaghetti squash. And that's about it. I did carrots and beets, but they were kind of a disaster. And in my planter boxes, I have 6 planter boxes. They're like, I think 6 feet by 4 feet. My dad built them for me last year. And so I'm going to do all my flowers in those planter boxes too. So I'll do dahlias and zinnias and cosmos and I don't know. I kind of have like a wildflower mix. I'll put in one of them and kind of do a blend of flowers and vegetables this year. Last year I went really big and it was way too much to take care of, and so I'm really toning it back a little this year. It really just does take time when you have a garden, first to know like when you should plant things, if things are actually going to grow in your area, what the weed situation is going to be like. With planter boxes, the weeds are much more tameable. The first year I had a garden in the ground and the weeds were crazy all the time. And then last year in my planter boxes, again, everything kind of died. And honestly, my tomatoes were finally like flourishing in about October. And so that was just not ideal. So then I pulled everything out this spring in there, and now I'm just going to try it all again. Again, with like my flower situation, I had about 8 rows that were probably 20 feet long of flowers. And again, in between each row, the weeds were just untamable. So I'm just really toning things back again, trying to still have the same result, but not have everything die. So I'm going to go buy plants, and then I'm going to have to cover them all up so that they don't get fried to a crisp again. And I can hopefully have some produce that does really, really well this year. And in other news too, I wanted to tell you that I am doing a coffee shop series over on my Instagram. And I talked about this a little bit on the previous podcast because making my coffee in the morning is truly the highlight of my day when it comes to food. I was telling Nate that I'm like, it's not like the best part of my day in general, but when it comes to things that I'm eating or consuming, definitely my morning coffee is that. So I did a coffee shop series where I've been making a bunch of different lattes. 2 more syrups I'm going to actually make. It's going to be a blueberry pancake recipe and then bananas Foster recipe. So I'll be recording those and posting those sometime in the future, but I'm actually going to be selling my syrups. I have an issue of wanting to monetize every hobby, and truthfully, it doesn't really make me any money to make coffee syrups and sell them with how much really quality ingredients cost, with the jars, with everything. I'm not making a lot, which is not the goal of this. The goal of this really, or the point of this, is just because I've had so much fun making it, and I've had a lot of people that want to try things, but finding the ingredients or buying all the ingredients to make a syrup you don't know if you're going to love is, that's not always, not always something we want to do. At least I wouldn't want to do that. So I'm going to be making like little 4-ounce jars in sets of 4 that you can try 4 of the, I think 6 syrups that I'm going to be offering. And I made some little labels for it. So that's been kind of a behind the scenes creative project that I've been doing, and really just sharing on social media has been really fun recently. I think it's really fun to talk about pregnancy and postpartum and share more about my experience with that, just because I really don't feel like it's talked about a lot on social media. And I notice just with like the response of things that I share, that as women, I think we kind of crave like knowing more about it. And for me, I know postpartum was for sure a big question mark. Something that I feel like nobody really ever talks about. And especially during pregnancy too, it was like, I just felt so much guilt for not always being grateful to get to experience pregnancy that I didn't validate the negatives about pregnancy. And even really share about like what I was doing during pregnancy to support my body. A lot of things were just behind the scenes because, again, like I know people struggle getting pregnant. So it's like I just felt guilt if I wasn't always grateful. And so I never wanted to share how I was like counteracting the negative parts of pregnancy. And I also think it gets kind of a bad rap too. Like we talk negatively about pregnancy or postpartum, and really I'm grateful, obviously, to have such a good experience postpartum, but I've really, really loved the postpartum period. Of course, like there are a few hard weeks, but I think either when I was looking at postpartum research, it was like, not even research, just content. It was either like you're going to be in the trenches, it's going to be awful, or people had a wonderful experience. I would say I'm somewhere in the middle where, yeah, it's hard, but it's definitely doable. And I've definitely felt very supported in this kind of post-pregnancy season of life. So just want to share a lot more on that. And I guess kind of rounding this back out, the whole coffee syrup thing was a hobby that I started during postpartum. I wanted something to kind of be able to be creative with. And I've been doing some scrapbooking, but that's been put on pause because we're getting photos developed. And so just to be able to like make new coffee syrups, and like I said, making a coffee is something I love so much. It's my favorite part of the day, one of my favorite parts of the day. Like I said, when it comes to food, there's so many other wonderful things happening outside of just that, but I really love it. And so it's just been fun, and it's been a creative outlet for me. So I'm excited to be able to share that with you. If you're in the Nebraska area, I'll have opportunities to pick it up in Omaha, Lincoln, or in like Henderson area. Just because I go to Lincoln and Omaha, typically like once a month. So definitely can organize something if you're interested, of course. Just something I'm really excited about and excited to be able to share. So with that, let's get into the segment of today's podcast, or most episodes, I guess, where I do how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. I really do believe that not that you always have to have a balance or feel like you're, perfect in every area of these three, but when you notice health in all three areas, I feel like that's when you can live truly well nourished. Nourishment does not just come from food, but it comes with how you talk to yourself, your spiritual health, and your physical health. All the things just kind of encompassed in one is truly how you live a very well-nourished life. At least that's what I believe. So how I'm nourishing my mind. I would say that getting outside, truthfully, has just totally revived me. I really do believe that we should be spending over half of our time each day outside, and I know that's not doable and it's not possible for everyone. It's not possible for me when I'm working, but just being outside, I notice how much Oliver's mood even shifts when we're outside. If he's fussy, if I take him outside, I feel like he just calms down. I feel so calm. I've been laying out a blanket in the grass, and then I have like an umbrella for him so he's not in the sun the whole time. But we just lay out there, and he's probably content for like 10 to 15 minutes, which is pretty good. And we just lay out in the sun. It's been so nice. I feel like my body's finally thawed out from winter, and just really the weather's been perfect. So that has been so rejuvenating, just to be outside, get outside for walks, spend a lot of my afternoons outside, and just enjoy that time. How I'm nourishing my spirit. Okay, so this is a hard one for me because I feel like, honestly, my rhythms in the morning have not been ideal. In full transparency, I wake up and then it's like breakfast. Well, it's wake up, feed Oliver, breakfast, hold him, and then make a coffee or go for a walk. And that's about it. Like, I just kind of like roll right into things. And I really just know that's the season of life I'm at. I don't really have, I could make the time at a different point in the day, but my morning routine tended to be where I would do a devotional or read from the Bible. And I started reading the book of Esther, and it's been fine. I don't know. I was reading kind of the intro to Esther, and it was talking about how it was like so interesting. You couldn't put it down. And I just don't really feel that way about it. I don't know. And again, like, I think my brain is just not in I'm probably just not in the right headspace to like really feel like I'm fully present when I'm reading the Bible right now. And so finding a devotional is something that I would like to do, but I would say spiritual health is probably the area that is, I'm not going to say failing, because I still have rhythms like prayer and going to church and listening to sermons and listening to good podcasts. Like, those rhythms are still in place, but like the intentional sitting down, reading my Bible, reading a devotional, journaling about it has just not been in place. So that's an area this next week I need to focus more on and just find where I can fit that into my day. And then how I'm nourishing my body. I really think that just exercising again has been so good for me. Actually Nathan yesterday surprised me with a package in the mail for both a push present and then for Mother's Day. He's like, hey, I think you have a package in the mail. So I opened it and it was a Venue 3 Garmin watch that I had been wanting, and I am not a smartwatch girl. The Apple Watch was something I really had a very, very negative relationship with. When would I say that would be? About like 3 years ago, probably. And I would just like get very obsessive over if I was meeting my exercise goals. Honestly, my goals were typically like 500 minutes of exercise or movement a day. Like, it was just ridiculous. And so I really then took a period of time where I didn't wear my Apple Watch or anything. And then when I was training for my half marathon 2 summers ago, I started wearing it again. And I felt like my relationship with it was fine. I just don't love that it tells you to stand up or to move your body, because if I'm sitting, it's probably because I actually am acknowledging that my body needs rest. I didn't feel like I needed a watch to tell me that. I also, I don't wear any technology when I'm sleeping or anything, but I have decided to start running again, and I just really wanted something to be able to track my steps and my workouts. I looked at the Oura Ring for a really long time and just thought that for exercise, it's not really the most ideal. If you're wanting to like run or walk, it will tell you steps, but at least I don't believe that it would you can't like look at it and see what the time is. And so I wanted a watch for that. So it was just the nicest gift. I was not expecting it at all. And I'm really excited, like I said, to be able to look at steps and look at movement, which is a big part of what we're talking about today, honestly. This is kind of a good segue into it. My goal really is just to move my body more, not to be obsessive over it. I do have a goal of about 10,000 steps per day. And that's because I felt like that was realistic and doable for me right now in this season. Like I said, I'm at home. I typically go for a couple walks a day. I have been strength training with my mom 5 days a week. And so it's just felt like it was doable to have a step goal. That's not going to be the case for everyone. But again, just moving my body more is really what I wanted. And to be able to, like I said, when I start running more consistently, hopefully right now it's just 1 day a week. And honestly, Sunday was the first day that I've run since I was 20 weeks pregnant. That's when I stopped running this last time. So my dad and I, before church, every Sunday we would run 4 miles. And this last Sunday I had asked him, I'm like, are you ready to get back into it now that I'm about 8 weeks postpartum? And he's like, yep. So we went for 3 miles, and you guys, I'm still sore 2 days later. If you ask Nathan, I've honestly not stopped talking about how sore I am. I feel kind of pathetic, but I am so sore, and it always just blows me away how literally every muscle in your body can hurt so bad when you get back into running. And something about even just the half marathon I did a couple of years ago is I feel like it really trained my brain to not negatively spiral when I'm running. I remember when I started training for the half marathon, I would go 1 mile, and the whole time I was like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, you're tired, you should just walk, you can't do this. Like, that was just the brain chatter in my mind. And then, of course, like, you start training, you run a half marathon, you're like, I ran 13.1 miles, I can for sure run 1 mile. So then when I got back into training that next summer, again, when my dad and I would run together, starting about last May until, like I said, I was 20 weeks pregnant, we'd go 4 miles every Sunday, almost every Sunday. And again, like, I got back into running 4 miles really quickly because I just told myself, I'm like, you've run this far before, you can absolutely run 4 miles. And I did. Same with now getting back into running. I know that I can run longer, so getting back in and running 3 miles just felt really, really good. But we all have to start somewhere. Like I said, when I started training, it was 1 mile, and the brain chatter in my mind was so loud. I'm like, I for sure can't even finish a mile. And now I just went out and ran 3 miles after taking a very long time off of running, having a baby, and then getting back into it. So I'm not saying that to like pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that as like, when you push your body to do something that's really, really uncomfortable that you don't maybe love, you start to realize that you're much more capable than you think you are, or than your brain is going to tell you you are. So much of running is truly just the brain chatter, and when you push through the brain chatter, not if you're in pain, not if you're super uncomfortable, I'm not saying that, But if you really are just having those self-doubting thoughts, when you prove to yourself that you can do it, running feels a lot easier. And I'm very grateful to be at that point, because getting back into running shape, even now, like 3 miles was not easy, but I did not let my brain win. And it just felt good to get that accomplished. I was telling my dad, I'm like, being in running shape feels so good, but getting into it just absolutely sucks. And it does. And there's no sugarcoating it. Like, I was not running fast. I told him at one point, I'm like, I know I'm running slow and I truly just cannot run faster than this. And he's like, that's fine. I don't even want to go further than 3 miles. Like, let's just make it back to your yard. And then that's when we called it quits. So it's been a great way for me to support my physical health in conjunction with strength training. And I want to also preface today's episode with saying I am a certified personal trainer. I have my bachelor's of science degree in health and fitness studies. So when I talk about physical activity, I'm not just pulling things from the internet. I'm not just pulling things from a video I saw on TikTok. This is truly things that I've been educated in. And I just think it's important to say that, not that you have to have a certification in order to talk about things like this, but I do want you to know I have the qualifications and I have the education to touch on things like physical activity. And this is kind of that component of fat loss that I really wanted to touch on, because it can't go without mention. If you want to lose fat, I really believe you have to build muscle. I said that so many times in the episode a couple weeks ago, the part 1 of this series, is that you have to be building muscle. And that's just where the difference, again, between fat loss and weight loss is different. Weight loss, you might see people who lose a ton of weight, and maybe there's just not a lot of muscle tone. They've lost a lot of weight, maybe their weight is pretty low, but there's not that muscle tone. And that's because with weight loss, again, you're focusing on losing overall weight. With fat loss, you're focusing on losing fat while building and keeping muscle. And that's kind of where that challenge is, because you do want to then be consistently building muscle. And I want to also say, if you're new to exercise in general, just moving your body should be the goal. Right? So just getting steps in each day, just going for a walk should be your goal. That is going to make a big difference in how you feel. You're also probably going to notice you are building some muscle by going for walks, even if you could just put on a weighted vest, or like for me, I wear Oliver in a carrier and he's about probably 10 to 11 pounds right now. And so he, honestly, I definitely feel that. Like, my heart rate is a little bit higher when I carry him and walk, and it's just kind of my weighted vest in a sense. So doing something like that, moving your body, you're still going to be building muscle. It just won't be happening maybe as efficiently as it would be if you were strength training. And so, like I said, your goal should just be moving your body. If you're kind of new to exercise, that should be your goal. If you're also new into exercise, maybe getting a personalized exercise plan is not ideal. So go on YouTube. Like, I know Mad Fit has great resources. Sydney Cummings has great resources. I really like the platform Form by Sammy Clark. There's other trainers on there as well. I do have a code. It'll be in the description of today's episode if you want to check out Form. Again, there's like prenatal exercises, postnatal exercises, Pilates, strength, kind of Pilates and strength. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't know. There's a lot on there, some stretches, some core. It is also a great resource, but I think that's kind of where I would start, especially if the gym feels really uncomfortable for you and you're like, okay, I want to start strength training, but I don't know where to start. Follow somebody on YouTube and have the video playing while you're in the gym. Have your AirPods in. I think it's so helpful to be able to see somebody demo something and then kind of mirror them. I know that's for sure how I started. Sydney Cummings workouts were ones that I did for about a couple of years at least consistently. She ran so many different programs, and right now she's actually pregnant. So I know she's kind of adjusting her program maybe, but Summertime Fine is a great one if you are ever looking at her playlist. But she really makes it encouraging, and you're not just standing there doing like boring reps of something. She makes it very dynamic, very energizing, and I really would recommend her being a place to start. Her workouts are pretty intense, but of course, like I said, there's a variety of programs to follow, and she always shows modifications. Now from there, if you're like, yeah, I've been strength training for a while, but I don't always know what to do, excuse me, I would say think about working different muscle groups when you go into the gym. And this is where getting a personalized program has been really nice for me because my brother has created a program for me. I really trust his opinion, and I thought maybe I'd have him on to talk about it, which maybe I will one day. But he is very knowledgeable about strength training, and that's why I trusted him to write a program. Now, I like something with a little bit more cardio focus, so I add in a little bit of that and add in some core within his workouts. But really, each exercise that you do, it is focusing on, or I guess each day, it's focusing on a different muscle group. So like chest and back, biceps and triceps, quads and glutes, and then maybe a full body day, right? Like you're focusing on different muscle groups every time you go to the gym. Now, this is, like I said, where having something written out is nice, or if you follow a program like Sydney Cummings, she does that for you. So you don't even really have to think about it. I think sometimes what can hold us up from going to the gym is we don't want to look stupid and we don't really know what we're doing. And I want to just remind you that people at the gym are not probably watching you. They're not judging you. And if they are, like, that's just a reflection of some insecurity they have, because everybody at the gym is there because they want to improve in some way, right? So when we go to the gym, we shouldn't be judging what other people are doing. We also shouldn't be judgmental of ourselves and what we're looking like, or very self-conscious. People are very selfish. And when you go to the gym, I could almost guarantee that nobody's paying attention to you, especially if there's mirrors. They are 100% looking at themselves and looking at their body and their physique. So something just to remember is that you don't need to be ashamed or embarrassed. And if you do feel uncomfortable, like I said, put in those AirPods and follow a video program so you can mirror what the instructor is doing. And so again, kind of coming back to building strength, building muscle. When you build muscle, if you're new to it, obviously lifting any weight is going to build muscle. You're either going to do like muscular endurance, or you're kind of doing your max strength. So I'm in a phase where I'm doing max strength exercises, meaning that when I do repetitions, I'm doing about 8 to 12 and I'm building up. So the first time I may be able to do 12, I add weight, maybe I'm able to do 10. And then that last round, I should really be able to do maybe 6 to 8. Like it is kind of to that fatigue, like you're pushing your muscle to fatigue. Now the rest periods are a little bit longer when you're doing that. And so for me, it's like doing an exercise, resting for about 60 to 90 seconds, doing the exercise again, resting 60 to 90 seconds, doing it again. And that's just how the program has been built out, because I'm pushing my muscle to its max strength before then I move on to a different exercise or a different muscle group. So that's different than like HIIT. HIIT would be high intensity interval training. So you are really keeping that heart rate up. You're probably doing lower weight, higher repetition. And there's nothing wrong with that. Truthfully, I love HIIT so much. That's what I did for 2 years almost. I don't think it was the best for my body, and I did it regardless of how tired I was. I did it 7 days a week, never really gave my body the ability to rebuild. And so HIIT in modification or in moderation, I think is great. But again, HIIT is going to be the higher rep, less rest, keeping that heart rate elevated. Whereas when you are lifting weight to build muscle, you're building muscle, like I said, either way, but when you're really focusing on muscle and overall strength, right? Getting stronger and noticing those numbers go up in the weight that you're using. Typically, that is when you're doing like 2 to 3 sets of about 8 to 12 reps. Again, that last time you lift, it should be about 8, and that is the heaviest weight that you're doing, and it should really be challenging that entire set. And so that's just where I really think it can be helpful to have a focus on building muscle first, and then you can add in all these different types or forms of exercise, right? Like HIIT or high repetition or I don't even know. You're just able to diversify, maybe add in a couple days of running, a day of Pilates, but really just find first and foremost, move your body if that is something that is just honestly not something you want to do or feels like a challenge for you. Just focus on moving your body more, right? From there, focus on building muscle. Then from there, add in diversity, right? So like I said, having a running day, having a Pilates day, maybe having a day where you do HIIT, and then just going back to tried and true strength training. Like, I think that can be really helpful. And also, if you are new to strength training, utilizing the machines in the gym, if you have that. When you go to a gym, typically they have like an overhead press or a Smith machine. They have a squat rack that has the cables, so like you really can't hurt yourself on it. You have to do correct form. Utilizing the machines, the abductor and adductor machine for your lower body, that can feel really comfortable too, because it's really hard to do incorrect form when you're utilizing those machines. You can adjust the weight pretty easily, and you can't really do the form, or you can't really like look silly doing it, because the machine has a photo, typically diagram, of what it looks like to utilize the machine, and then you can just mimic that. Again, kind of following a up to 12 repetition sequence. At least that's always what I recommend, is pushing yourself for sure that first round up to 12, and then increasing the weight. Maybe then it's 10, maybe then it's 8 that next round. If you're able to do an exercise very easily and it doesn't feel like it's a struggle, I'm going to say you should be increasing your weight. You should not always be able to do 12 to 20 reps. You really want to, again, push it so that your max is about 8 reps on that last round or less. I don't push myself to failure, because I do like to have some repetitions, but you're really forcing yourself to that challenge, right, of lifting something very, very heavy that last round. And as much as I love, Pilates and yoga, that's not really something that is building muscle specifically. It's typically body weight, which your body does weigh something. So it's not like it's pointless to do those exercises. I think they're great for flexibility, and for sure when you're balancing it out with strength training, it can be a nice break. But really, again, utilizing weights. As women, we can't be afraid to strength train. I think that common misconception is that we don't want to get bulky. Getting bulky is not going to happen. We do not have the amount of testosterone in our body to bulk. Men are going to bulk, women will not. Your body actually is going to get smaller and tighter when you strength train. I also commonly hear people say, well, muscle weighs more than fat. And that's kind of something I told myself when I was heavier and really was just unhealthy and didn't have a good lifestyle, but I was exercising. I was like, well, I'm gaining weight because I'm building muscle. And that was not the case for me. Muscle and fat weigh the exact same. 1 pound of muscle is going to weigh the same as 1 pound of fat, right? They're both 1 pound. But the thing is muscle is taking up less space in your body than 1 pound of fat would. That is why when we build muscle, we can't really look at the scale, because the scale might never change, but you're building muscle. And that's when we can get really defeated and upset with ourselves because, well, the scale's not changing. I'm not losing weight. Yeah, but if you're building muscle, you're going to notice a difference in how your pants feel and how your tops feel. And so that's where I had said on the previous episode to do measurements. Measure your waist, measure your hips, measure your thigh, measure your forearm, not your forearm, your bicep, and utilize measurements to track progress. For me too, I know looking in the mirror is not a way to track progress either, because we look in the mirror every single day. So we're not going to notice every change that happens in our body, because when we see ourselves so often, it doesn't really feel like we look any different, even if our body is physically changing. And again, we don't always have to have the focus on wanting to change what we look like. That is not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm implying. This episode is really, if you are interested in getting stronger, maybe you do want to see changes in your physique, this is really what I would recommend focusing on. And again, you don't always need to do that. You don't always need to be in a season of that. But if you are, these tools can be really helpful. Not utilizing the scale, more so utilizing measurements. Again, muscle will take up less space in your body, so you'll notice your body getting smaller, but maybe the scale doesn't change. It's not really an accurate depiction unless you'd have a scale that can also tell you like body fat percentage. I don't weigh myself, so I don't even know that. I'm solely using measurements to track and monitor progress. So that has been really helpful for me. Again, strength training too is something where if you are not one who loves to exercise, Give yourself 2 to 4 weeks and really find that discipline here, because it's not fun when you feel weak. I'm telling you right now, it has not been fun to get back into exercising, to get back into strength training, and to feel so weak after feeling so strong during my pregnancy, taking off 5.5, 6 weeks, and then getting back into it. Like, it isn't fun. My core feels so weak. It feels so defeating. I do core workouts and I feel like I don't know how on earth I ever did it and didn't want to just die, because it's not fun. Okay? Point blank, it's not fun. So I know how uncomfortable it can be to get back into it, especially like if you're going to the gym and you're like, well, I'm using super light weights. Again, nobody should be judging you. Don't judge yourself. You're at least at the gym trying to get stronger, right? That should be encouraging for you. You're trying to build muscle. You are building muscle. You're in the gym. You're in the right place. But give yourself that 2 weeks at least to do it. And I know it might be a really challenging 2 weeks if you don't feel strong. The last couple of weeks have not been easy for me either to get back into it, to get back into running, to get back into strength training. My body feels weak, but I'm doing it and I'm showing up every day and doing it. And that's just what you have to do. At some point, you can't. And this is where it's hard, because yes, have grace with yourself. Don't push yourself to the point where you injure yourself, but you have to have that discipline, right? And I think physical activity is where we're kind of like, like I thought that maybe I wanted to lose fat and build muscle. But once you mention exercise, I'm out, right? Once you mention having to lift heavy weights, I'm out. And I see that happen all the time, right? Movement is hard to be consistent with, and it's hard to make the time for if it's something you already don't enjoy. But really view this as a 2-week span. Give yourself those 2 weeks. Just focus on how you can build muscle. Maybe at the end of 2 weeks, you do something for yourself, like you get a new pair of leggings, right? I'm not saying we always have to be rewarding ourselves, but if 2 weeks of consistency would make you really proud of yourself, reward yourself for that, right? Do something. Maybe book an exercise class at a place that you've wanted to go to for a long time. When you strength train, you truly build your confidence. You look different in how you carry yourself. You have a different level of confidence when you build muscle. I've seen it happen. It's just a different level of proudness, right? You worked hard, built muscle to be able to even just do daily activities and make them seem a lot easier. Something that I want to give credit to my grandma for, she is, I won't say her age, but she has come to my exercise classes when I was holding those. Now I've taken a break postpartum, but she came and she had even said too, she's like, getting up and down off the floor is so much easier. Doing everything feels so much easier because I've been building muscle. And you can tell, like, her body looks strong. And as we age, having muscle tone is what we want, right? You want muscle tone. It's going to kind of be that longevity tool for you to have muscle. And for her, it's just been incredible to see like her getting up and down off the floor. It's easy because she's built muscle and she's consistent. She'd come every Monday and Wednesday, almost perfect attendance, right? And that is what it takes. Find an environment that you want to move your body in, that feels encouraging, feels exciting to be there, and really just immerse yourself in it. Give yourself 2 weeks, have grace with yourself for 2 weeks, but also be disciplined for 2 weeks and just see how much better you feel, maybe how your confidence changes. I really am a firm believer in strength training, and it is such a tool for longevity, like I said, and just can't recommend it enough. Another piece of movement for fat loss is moving your body in general. And again, I've touched on this, but getting out and walking, doing some incline walking. We are a very sedentary society. My job is typically sitting at a computer most of the day. I have a pretty sedentary job, which I love what I do, but I don't love that aspect. I love to be doing something, to be moving, to be in the yard, to be going for walks. And so when we have a sedentary lifestyle, honestly, we just have to work a little bit harder outside of that window to be active, to spend the time that you are not working, not at a computer, not at a desk, outside or or exercising at the gym or getting out in your yard and mowing or working in your garden or playing with your kids. Like there's so many things that we can naturally do to move our body, but really having a step goal I think can also be helpful. And I think 10,000 steps is kind of the magical number. I kind of joke of like, who decided that 10,000 steps was the magic number? Really, if you walk 10,000 steps, you're getting about 5 miles in of walking per day, which I think honestly, that's pretty good. But if you have limited time and you're like, okay, I really want to be walking and get my steps in and just get my heart rate elevated, but I don't have, 2 hours to go for a walk in the evening, totally fine. I would say most people don't. I definitely don't make the time to do that every evening. It's not realistic, but doing 30 minutes of incline walking can be the best way to kind of get the most bang for your buck. Not really in a calorie burning sense, although you will burn more calories, but it's putting you in a heart rate zone where your body's going to be burning fat more efficiently and building muscle because you're walking at an incline, right? So you're really targeting the glutes and the quads, kind of the calves as you're doing incline walking. So 12-3-30 is a very common, I'm sure you've seen that somewhere, kind of like, formula for when you incline walk. So you're walking at incline of 12 at speed 3 for 30 minutes, trying not to hold on to the railings. I definitely do, especially as I'm getting back into shape. I have to. You can adjust this too. Like if doing 12-3-30 feels very defeating, totally fine. Go down to incline 8, walk at speed 3, go for 30 minutes. Like just move your body. Any amount of incline is going to increase your body's ability to burn fat or just increase the efficiency of your body's ability to burn fat, again, because you're in a heart rate zone where that occurs. So incline walking can be really great. Otherwise, just trying to increase your steps per day, like I said. So when I work with clients and we even create a step goal, for everyone, 10,000 steps is not going to be the magic number. If right now you're getting 4,000 steps, I typically tell clients get 2,000 more steps per day than you are right now. So if you don't have a watch, you can also, I always think it'd be nice to have like a little pedometer that you can just wear on your pants. They're very old school, not very tech savvy, or you don't really need to be tech savvy to use it. It's just going to track your steps. But I think utilizing some sort of tracking tool initially can be helpful. If you don't have a tracking tool, don't have access to that, then just go for about a 20-minute walk in addition to anything that you're doing, right? So if you are getting maybe 4,000 steps per day, aim to get 2,000 steps more or walk 20 minutes more than what you're doing right now. 20 minutes is about how long it takes most people to walk 1 mile. And so that's about like speed 3.5-ish, 3 to 3.5-ish. And so when you add on that 20 minutes of walking, maybe you break it up into 5 minutes of walking after every meal or 10 minutes of walking as soon as you wake up, 10 minutes of walking before you go to bed. It doesn't all have to be at one shot, but just try to get, again, 20 minutes of walking in addition to whatever you're doing. And then from there, you can always increase. I don't think 10,000 needs to be everybody's step goal, but movement in general is just going to be helpful. And so, like I said, add in a 20-minute walk, get that extra 2,000 steps. I think that's a really good initial goal to be in. Other factors too that come in when you're thinking of overall fat loss and physical activity is your level of stress, right? So are you finding time to let your body rest and let your body recover? This is something that I would say I've done really bad with in the past. I've gotten a lot better at actually acknowledging rest and taking a day of rest. But if you go back and listen to the first episode I ever recorded, I'm sure I touch on this of just working out 7 days a week, an hour and a half to 2 hours, going for 4-mile walks every evening. I didn't allow my body to ever really rest and recover, and I really felt pretty beat down. I lost my period in addition to this. Initially, when we had gotten married, I felt very sick. I didn't have a job, and then I didn't have a job that I loved, and then I had another job that I didn't love, and I just always felt kind of like I had the stomach flu. I thought it was irritable bowel syndrome. Really, it was my body's response to an extreme amount of emotional stress. And then I lost my period for about 6 months, and I credit that 100% to not eating enough, for sure not eating enough fats, and exercising 7 days a week, not really taking breaks, not letting my body recover. Something, again, I'm trying to focus a lot more on and implement now, knowing the response my body had, right? Having a period or a lack of a period was my body signaling that something wasn't right, that it was very stressed out, that it needed more support than I was giving it. And I chose to ignore that for many, many months until I'm like, if I want to have kids, if I want to have a family, like I need to have a cycle, right? My body needs to feel safe. And so that was a big adjustment that I made, was just resting more, taking one day and truly sitting on the couch and doing nothing, which is typically my either Saturday or Sunday, depending on, again, if I'm running in the mornings, which I've started now. So Saturdays will be my rest day. I see a lot of people still talk about having an active rest day, and I don't want to poop on that, but at the same time, know yourself. You don't have to have an active rest day. You can truly have a rest day. And I think that's where I've seen kind of toxicity in exercise and fitness culture be, is they'll work out 6 days a week and then have an active rest day where they'll go for a 4-mile walk. When I rest, that is not happening. When I rest, that truly means now I'm sitting on the couch, probably watching YouTube, or I'm eating more, or I am going out to eat with my family, or something that is very refreshing and restful. And honestly, I'm fueling my body a lot more, probably eating a lot more, because as my body recovers, I get a lot more hungry. And so that is kind of what my rest days look like. So yes, active rest days can have their time and place, but you can truly just have a rest day and do whatever activities or lack of activities you need to do to feel well rested. Also, other factors here is, are you doing this out of a place of hating your body or wanting to support your body? And before you even think about fat loss or how maybe you want to see physique changes occur, you need to think about what your motive is. Is your motive solely because you hate what you see when you look in the mirror and you need to change it? Or is it because you maybe just want to see some changes because you finally are at a point where you feel like you can support your body well? And you maybe want to support your body with eating really well and strength training and walking and going for walks and adding in exercise classes that you enjoy, right? It needs to come from a place of not just hating your vessel and needing to change it, but truly wanting to honor it. And something that I will be very transparent with is, in this season of life, it's been really difficult for me to love my body, and I will say that I probably don't. And that is not always the goal. I think we see often like we should always love our bodies, and I don't really buy that. Like, I think people that say that are kind of lying to themselves and lying to other people. You do not need to love your body in every season of life. I've said this many times, but you need to support your body in every season of life. Love and support are very different, right? You can support your body and do what you know you need to do to take care of yourself. And it doesn't always have to come out of a place of, I love what I look like and I love my appearance and I just want to take care of my body. There's seasons where that is definitely the case, and there's seasons where that is not the case. Postpartum, I think, has been a really tricky time to navigate, especially just with things I've struggled with in the past. It's hard to look at myself and be like, oh, I just love my body. And I'll tell you that I don't. But that doesn't mean I don't support my body. That doesn't mean that I don't try to, build muscle. That doesn't mean that I don't still nourish my body and eat food and enjoy dessert and enjoy a coffee every morning. I'm not doing everything out of a place of hate. I'm doing it out of a place of, I've built habits and they need to be in place in order for my body to be supported. I'm not doing it out of, I love everything about myself and what I look like, and I'm just going to do this anyway. That is not the place I'm at. I would definitely be at the place where I'm doing things that I know I need to do to support my body, so eventually I can get to a point where I love and appreciate my body a lot more than truthfully I do right now. So think about where this is all coming from, right? We don't always need to be in a season of wanting to change our body or change our appearance, but I think these steps can be really helpful if you're just wanting to support your body and you want it to look a little bit different in this season of life. Also thinking about, are there any other factors at play? So think about your overall health, right? Do you need to focus on fat loss right now, or would it be more supportive if you adjusted your diet first, you supported health concerns, maybe got some blood work done to see where levels were at, you went on more walks, got fresh air to reduce stress? there's so many factors for all of us at play that impact how we're able to then support our body. Fat loss is probably a more advanced, like if you're, I don't know, I would say it's a more of an advanced piece of the puzzle. For a lot of people, the first step is just adjusting your diet, adjusting your protein intake, your fat intake, your fruits and vegetable intake. That is where I recommend most people start, is with diet. Oftentimes you'll see people start with exercise, and that's great and that's fine, that's dandy. But if your nutrition is not being factored in, it's going to be really hard to see maybe physical results from physical activity that you want to see. So diet, I think, should always be that first approach, and then you add in physical activity as you feel like your lifestyle can support that. And then in addition to this too, you can add in other holistic health remedies for fat loss and just overall supporting your body as you feel comfortable, right? So starting with nutrition, starting with how you've adjusted your plate, reducing alcohol intake, then adding in some physical activity, getting to the gym 3 times a week, 1 to 3 times a week, and then getting to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, and then adding 1 day of going for a long walk, and then completely resting 1 full day. So that kind of makes up your week. And then as you feel comfortable with that, you could add in castor oil packs, which are great for liver support, add in lymphatic drainage, maybe doing red light therapy or different recovery modalities, sauna, hot tubs, adding in electrolytes or perfect aminos, which I talked about on last week's episode. When you are focusing on hydration, of course, always adding minerals. That's not something I did right away. I didn't even know that was a thing until I really looked more into hydration and the lack of minerals in our water. Maybe postnatal vitamins if you're postpartum, and then like red light glasses to support cortisol levels and melatonin production. Like as I'm talking, these are just things that you can add in as you go. But if you were to think, okay, I'm going to get started and I really want to focus on fat loss, great, that's awesome. To jump right into then doing a castor oil pack, figuring out what vitamins you should be on or supplements, then getting some red light glasses to support cortisol regulation, then to think you need to do a 60-hour walk every single day. And then, while you're doing that, you also need 1 gram of protein per pound body weight. That all is way too much, right? It's like getting way too hyperfixated on all these little things that, yes, they're helpful and they're supportive, but they're not necessarily foundational. Foundations is nutrition, protein intake, water intake. Foundations is movement, building muscle, going for walks. Those are huge components of that. Sleep, that's a huge piece of this too. Recovery, rest. And then you can adjust what recovery looks like I said, by adding in different modalities. You could add in different supplementation based off of your lab work or blood work. It just all comes with time. And I just don't want you to get too far ahead of yourself, especially when you listen to something like this or when you just consume content. I feel like if I just scroll for 5 minutes on Instagram, I see so many different recovery modalities, supplements that people are trying to sell me, or different sleep aids. It's like, it's too much, right? We just need to get back down to the basics. And I have a whole episode just on foundations. I would highly recommend you listen in addition to this episode, because this episode is a little bit more catered towards fat loss, which I think is very, very important. The foundations are way more important than these 2 episodes, truthfully. If you're not doing the foundations, it's really hard to implement and integrate any additional things that I've talked about in either the first episode, which is a couple weeks ago for part 1, or like I said, part 2. I want to kind of leave you with a couple closing things. If you're interested in getting a strength training plan or program that's personalized to you and you don't know where to go, you can message me. I have a couple people I would recommend to you to write out a program for you. If you are just like, I don't want to invest a lot into this and I need free resources, I would say MadFit is a great resource on Instagram, or not on Instagram, on YouTube. Sydney Cummings would be a great resource on YouTube. And then if you're wanting to invest in something that maybe isn't a one-on-one coach or a program, but is still, kind of consistency, something you invest in, that has different programs. I would recommend Form. That would be the number one platform I would recommend, just because there's so many different types of exercises on there: strength training, Pilates, yoga, stretching, core, a mix of all of them. So again, there's a link in the description below, or at least a code if you want to try that out. I think it gives you like $20 something off your first membership, or your first year membership, which I definitely used when I got into Form, and now I'm glad that I have a code that I can give you to use if that's something you're interested in. I like to do kind of a mix of all of them. So 4 days a week, I'm doing a strength focused plan that was written for me. And then 1 day a week, I'm doing a Sydney Cummings workout. And then the other day, I'm probably doing a run or stretching and following something on YouTube that's free. Or on Form. So I'd like to just kind of, have some diversity in how I'm moving my body. Overall, again, my focus is on just building muscle. In order to build muscle, you've got to be eating enough. You've got to be eating enough protein and fueling your body and recovering your body, resting your body, so that muscle can really build and grow. And I think that's kind of what I have to say on this for now. I'm really wanting to bring on somebody. I really just need to reach out to him, because I have somebody in mind to talk specifically about strength training and get very, very nitty gritty in what this could look like. I've also had on somebody previously. I'll link that episode in the description, because we did talk about strength training for the female body, which is super helpful. That was a long time ago. So I'll try to link that episode in the description of today's episode. That way you can go back and listen to that to kind of get a full, well-rounded picture. But if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, on YouTube. I'm the most active on both of those platforms, probably. My email is always in the description of each episode. I am not currently coaching, but I will be in the next couple of weeks. I'm actually at full capacity for coaching right now, but you can always get on the wait list if you're interested in getting blood work done to look at supplementation or lifestyle changes. Highly recommend that. Most importantly, lifestyle changes, and then see where there's some deficiencies maybe in your diet that you could increase. Blood work is a great way to do that. So that's always also linked in each podcast episode if you want to get on the wait list for either of those. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to mention. I don't think so. I always get on here and I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a 30 to 45 minute episode, and then I just yap. So hopefully you gained something from today's episode, that you're leaving feeling more encouraged and inspired than you were before you clicked on today's episode. And with that, I will talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.